Welcome to season 3 of the Iceman Podcast. My name is Brett Arkelian. Kick your feet up, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Iceman Podcast.
They need to be on special teams in order to make the bus, so you bust your ass. I was on the field at 152 pounds. A lot of special teams is effort, want to, attitude, and attention to detail.
Welcome specialists, coaches, dads of kickers, moms of punters, relatives of long snappers, and dogs that shag kickoffs to the now Iceman Podcast. We're not just doing special teams and specialists, all right? We've got some great guests on. It's the show with cold questions and even cooler guests, and I'm your host, Brett Arkelian. I'm joined today by a notable figure in the Central Valley and in the podcast realm. He's been an ex-Fresno State wide receiver, an ex-Olympic trained athlete. He's had countless professional athletes.
Over 75. 80.
Over 75 professional athletes. All right. You've seen his gear all over the valley. Owner of the Bring the Juice podcast and the Prince of Pistachios, Frank Dalena. Welcome to the show.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, man. I love that intro is fire. Intro, you gotta hook them in. I'm reeled in myself and I'm on the show. So I'm feeling good. Excited to be on the Iceman Pod, man. I'm fired up. Let's get after it.
Thank you for nailing the name change. You know, we used to be all specialists, all special teams, but as you know, there's a greater market out there for talking ball. You're a fellow podcaster.
Yes, sir.
You know, tell me a little bit before we get into the heavy hitters section here, brought to you by the Kickers Bible. You and your family are well connected in the Valley and in the pistachio world, as I mentioned. Can you tell me about the pistachio party in Old Town Clovis? And did you take a picture with Mr. Pistachio, the pistachio mascot?
Yeah. So kind of my two worlds collided on that one. I've done a really, I think, good job about separating my farming side of my life, which is most of it, with my Bring the Juice side of my life, which is also most of it, I guess you could say. But you know, the American Pistachio Growers, one of the representatives remembered me from my time playing football at Fresno State, listened to the podcast, said, hey, you're having professional athletes on every week. You got a following, you're getting good social media engagement. We are trying to push people to eat more pistachios itself. We know that you guys farm, and we mainly farm onions for a living. But we have a little bit of pistachios, enough to be relevant in the nut category. And so we worked out a deal, and the representative came and saw me record a podcast that day. And it was one of the professional boxers, Mark Castro from the Valley, who he's going for 10-0 tomorrow, which I don't know when this will be dropped, but dude's a stud. And now the three big boxers from the Valley of Jose Ramirez, Richard Torres, and Mark Castro are all sponsored by the American Pistachio Growers. And, you know, the first guest I had on was Dylan Lee after this deal was signed, who he won the World Series with the Atlanta Braves. And this representative was here. My first question of the whole day was, hey, Dylan, do you think eating pistachios helped you win the World Series for the Atlanta Braves? And the guy was just like, dude, what else kind of marketing do you want for pistachios? So it kind of ran from there. Came up with this slogan: if you want to perform like the pros, eat your pistachios. They loved it. I was at the Old Town Clovis Pistachio Fest thing. I did take multiple pictures with the mascot. I did a Q&A with Mark Castro before his last fight there, and I had to try pistachio beer. I tried a bunch of other pistachio things. We had a eating competition of how many nuts you could crack in a minute. I think I had like 17 or 18. I don't know how, accountable the counter was that day, but really appreciate my partnership with the American Pistachio Growers for taking care of me. I'll Bring the Juice. And obviously it's something where it's nice when you have an ad read where it really is part of your life, honestly, all my sponsors I've been blessed. They've been great people, Valley based, also on a national scale though, for most of them. And the pistachios, I was in a pistachio field today. Like, it's relevant to me. So being able to push the industry that helps feed my family also, which is relevant towards also athletes. I say iron sharpens iron. Shit, eat your pistachios. It's a good source of protein. It's better than, Lay's chips. It's better than a lot of things. So yeah, pistachios, bring the juice. Frank Dalena, they all go hand in hand.
Hey, it's a healthy snack and it helps the pros perform. That's all I care about, man.
Absolutely.
That's really cool. I really do think you do it right. I think one of the most impressive, and we'll hit on it later, most impressive aspects is, like you said, how you've been able to keep those distant a little bit, but then also unite them. And that sponsorship, I think, is real, because what you always hear from podcasts or shows is these phony fake ads, right? Where the guy's like, I use whatever the underwear brand, and you think it's a freaking joke, but you can tell you're passionate about it, and it's really about your life.
Yeah. Gotta sell the people, man. I want to put my money where my mouth is. I'll back it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Let's talk, go back a little bit. Like I said, you've done a lot in a short amount of time. Your career athletically has gone through some ups and some downs. I don't want to talk about that. Now, tell me, and I'm going to take you back a little bit here, the city county high school soccer all-star game that was played in Chukchansi Park. What do you remember from that?
Yeah. A lot of people don't know I played soccer unless you played against me in soccer, but
4 years.
I was better at soccer than I was at football. That was the plan. The plan was go to Cal Poly, play soccer. And then I had a great junior year of football, and I was getting recruited by Cal Poly soccer and football. And I was like, do both, but it wouldn't have worked. And then, Fresno State came knocking, gave me a walk-on spot. So that was it. But from the soccer perspective, it was sad, man. I mean, most kids, you grow up. I didn't get to play tackle football till I was in 8th grade. My parents would have let me. Soccer, you start when you're, kindergarten, 4 years old, 5 years old, something like that. Was never great, but at the same time, I scored goals like crazy. I was, humble brag. I got a lot of the accolades. There were some memorial records that I broke at the time. I think they're not holding anymore, but it was great. It was a great part of my life. My mom was a stud soccer player. Most people don't know that, but she claims I got my speed from her. My brothers all got our speed from her. Again, that's a kitchen table debate, but I knew it was my last soccer game because I was already training and committed to go play at Fresno State. That was kind of a done deal at that point. So last time to lace them up, haven't done it in a while. It was fun. Chukchansi is a cool place to play soccer. I also played football there. It's not that fun to play football at. It's kind of quiet for a football game. But it was great. Two of my best friends, three of my good buddies, who all of us were high school soccer, the studs on the team essentially. Throughout my career at Memorial, we got to play in it together, and it was cool, and people showed out, man. People love soccer in the Valley, so I loved it. It was a nice send off. I haven't played since. Dabbled with some indoor, but maybe I'll get back into it. I don't know. My hamstrings are a little tight these days.
Yeah, you just got to get the yoga in. Yeah, believe me, I'm huge. Wherever I've gone, wherever I've lived, starting when I lived in Houston and worked at Rice, I would play flag football, indoor soccer, and some type of kickball, man. So if you're down, I'm here for it. Yeah, my brother actually played in that game too. That's the cool thing about, being in the Valley and talking to Valley guys. I mean, I think you're really our true first Valley guy back on here. I mean, we had John Baxter, who's a Valley legend, of course, but he wasn't born and raised like we are, and it's cool talking about specialists and special teams, but I like getting some Valley guys in here. Yeah, so my brother was at Buchanan that time, but that's cool. I think, knowing that you're a multi-sport athlete, a lot of people may not know that because they know about your career after that. I want to head to Fresno State, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the walk-on life. I mean, people don't really know what that consists of. I was essentially a walk-on at Fresno City before I transferred to Division II, and then grad transferred to a Division I school. But what is that walk-on life like, and how did that mold your career thereafter?
Yeah. I was a 5'8" white boy trying to play wide receiver at the Division I level. So I know that's a rarity. My whole high school recruiting was I would send my highlight tape and my GPA and not say how big I was. And they'd send this great email back saying, we really like what you are. What's your height and your weight? And then either I'd get crickets or it'd be like, okay, why don't you come to our camp and we'll see if you could do it. I'm just like, all right, man. But I knew in my gut and in my heart that I was bred to just keep it overcoming odds athletically. And I knew if I had a shot, I'd capitalize on it. Luckily, Fresno State gave me a walk-on spot, and it was coming off of, Derek and Devontae's reign of just these Fresno State legends are just popping out like it's nothing. So coming into that was a little not even intimidating, but believe it or not, my coach, the summer I got the walk-on spot before, I went to the summer camp at Fresno State, won like fastest man, got to meet all the coaches. I had a broken hand. I had a cast on, and I was catching everything still with the cast on. It was awesome. I meet the slot receiver coach, and he basically told me to my face, like, gonna be honest with you, son. We have this guy named Devontae Adams who just played here, and that's kind of our caliber of player now, and I don't think you're gonna fit the mold. Sure enough, had a great fucking senior year. And 4 months later, I'm at his house as a slot wide receiver on the team, eating dinner with all the other slot wide receivers. Like, I'm not gonna say F you, but like, you know what? It fueled my fire like crazy. So I got that opportunity, learned the ropes from some of the old guys. The walk-on life is different. You have to understand, like, you are bottom of the totem pole. Nothing is given to you at all. You are treated like a tackle dummy out of the gates, and you got to earn respect. And there's multiple ways you could do it, but one of the best, the key ways, in my opinion, is do everything right. Don't give them a reason to kick you off the team. Don't give them a reason to not travel to you. Make it to where it's like, hey, this guy knows the entire offense, all the receiver positions. He could play anything on special teams. He knows the technique. He's there early. He's got a good GPA. We don't have to class check him. He's never missed a workout. He always has a notebook open, ready to take notes. No hood on in meeting room, no hat on, gets taped, all this crap. And it's like, is that hard? No, you're just doing what you're supposed to do. And it's crazy that you work your way up the ladder off of just other people falling off the ladder. And I learned that kind of early on, and I just stuck to it, man. All good things take time. My first real opportunities to play was I redshirted my freshman year, learned the ropes, and then that first season I was able to play because the rules were different back then. It was like fall camp, and we were trying to get our punter Blake Cusick at the time to get his just operation time faster on getting the punts off. And I would come off the edge and I'd block the punt every single day. And eventually, it's like game 3 in the season. It's actually I traveled off at game 1 against Nebraska, and I got to be on in a package. And that's really what got me in the door to be somewhat of an asset for the Fresno State football team, was just pacing off the starters enough to where it's like, you know what? None of our starters is doing this. Our scout team guy's doing it. You're the starter now. And then I made it to where I was not going to let anybody take my spot. And it developed. And being a walk-on who travels over scholarship guys, it's a rarity. It's tough. It's not made for everybody. There's definitely a bias there because you got to think about it. Football itself at most levels is a business. And college football, if you're on scholarship, it's essentially saying that the university has invested into you versus the walk-on. We haven't paid any physical money to invest into you. So it's a business decision at that point. So you have to overcome certain odds. You're not, they don't, you gotta earn some respect. You gotta make a couple plays. You got to do the little things right. You have less of a leash, but you just consistently do good things day after day, every single day. Be a lunch pail guy that shows up and does the right thing every day and bust his ass. Dude, it's the formula that me and my brothers live by. Is just go to work, give extreme effort, high attitude, perform at a high level, and with high character and integrity. And dude, I mean, have a little bit of faith in your life, and shit takes care of itself. I truly believe that.
I believe it
So
100% too. And not to
yeah,
interrupt you though, Frank, but I agree that like some schools, a scholarship opportunity is worth like $275,000. I mean,
totally.
that
Look at
is
like Stanford. Yeah,
yeah, and that is what a house in some areas, right? Not definitely not in the Central Valley right now, but yeah, you kind of hit on that too, talking about the special teams aspect. Talk a lot because we're about teams here.
yeah.
A little bit about making plays, and that so much of punt return in my eyes is effort, is get off,
All effort.
and as Coach Baxter here says, first four, respecting the first four steps and getting off the ball. It runs in your family. As you set the precedent, your brother, I don't know if you knew this, tied for first in the Mountain West Conference last year with most tackles on special teams. So talk a little bit about how special teams affected your journey.
Yeah. The vets teach the young guys early. You want to make the bus. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but there's 110 kids on a football team at the Division I level. And I don't know what the rule is right now, but usually it used to be like between 58 and like 62 actually travel and dress out. So damn near half the team doesn't even have a jersey on game day. And you have to understand like each position is going to have X amount of guys. So I was just taught, you want to play, you want to have that jersey on, you want to go to play against Nebraska, play against Alabama, you want to make the bus to go play against Nevada, whatever it is, or even you're just at home in front of the red wave. You want to be in basketball shorts, or do you want to be out here running out of the tunnel, baby? Get on special teams. So get in where you fit in. The coaches know that. Coaches know that there's guys who they need to be on special teams in order to make the bus. So you bust your ass. And I mean, my freshman year, I think I weighed I was on the field at 152 pounds. But guess what? I had leverage. I didn't get little boyed enough. Sometimes I ended up on the ground, but guess what? My dude's not making the tackle. I'm filling my gap. I'm doing my job. And I think, like you said, a lot of special teams is effort, want to, attitude, and attention to detail. And, people think when, the honey badger at LSU used to house one, yeah, he's a magic man. But at the same time, there's a lot of those people don't understand. That punt return team, they all got on another body and created these giant gaps for him just to sprint. And being the guy who's not the deep man, because I was the deep man in high school, but being the guy who's not the deep man, it's like a satisfying feeling. I was on the field with Ronnie Rivers, freaking smacked one for 60. I was one with DeJounte O'Neal hit a house call. It's fun, man. I mean, it's really fun, but it's about want to. It's a great way to earn your stripes if you show that you have if the coaches put trust in you to have a job on a special teams and you take advantage of it. They give you a little more responsibility. Now you're more attractive to whether you're an offense or defensive player, the OC or DC. They're saying, hey, this guy's getting the job done here. Maybe we can start incorporating him in these packages, this play. Maybe he's just a third down guy. Maybe we give him a little more first and second down action, whatever it might be. It's a great step to earn your stripes. And, we talked about it earlier about, hey, I've had NFL players on the podcast. Special teams couldn't be more important in the NFL. It's the difference between making a roster and making, six figures plus or P squad money, which is still great money. But you could ask a lot of guys. People don't make rosters because guess what? They're not a gunner. They can't kick step on punt. So, I learned between being a walk-on and learning special teams and learning the offense is if they're only going to have 58 people travel, well, then I need to be as much of an asset as possible to this football team. Meaning, I am bring the juice. Ask anybody I ever play with. I'm positive vibes on the sideline. We're down. I'm not like the hoorah, like, come on, we're fine. But it's like, hey, you go up to a dude who just dropped a touchdown pass. Hey, bro, you're good, bro. They need that pickup sometimes. And you don't want to be the cancer on the sideline. But like special teams is juice. I mean, when you're go to a Fresno State football game this year on opening kickoff, everyone's standing up and is just the electricity could not be higher. You can't mimic that in any situation on planet Earth. The preparation to a kickoff in a big football game, it's unmatched. So
and the change too of yardage, right? Like on any given play in special teams, there's gonna be 40 or more yards exchanged in that play. I just had Todd Goebel from NC State on. He's talking about there's no other play like that can change the amount of field position. That's wild.
Well, that's field position, but there's also momentum. I mean, let's say it could set the tempo of a game. If you're the deep man, if you're returning and it's opening kickoff and you bring it out to the 50, automatically all the momentum's on your side. Counters that. Let's say you're on the kickoff team and you pin them on the 12. Dude, you're electric. You're electric. You go block a punt, it changes the whole thing. The whole thing is changed. Games are won and lost off special teams, and I believe in that. And so I give credit to my vets that took care of me. It gave me an opportunity to, suit up and get on the field originally when I was young, and I've ran with that. I'd say the biggest struggle I had was not being some physical specimen. I had to continuously prove my worth on special teams to 3 different coordinators throughout my career and 3 different coaching staffs. It couldn't just be my freshman year. I earned my stripes. Hey, Frank Dalena, everyone called me Frankie D at Fresno State. Hey, Frankie D, hey, he's our L2 here, or whatever it might be. So continually having to earn those stripes, make it to where I like I said, make it to where the coach can't not put you there. We're doing a drill. I'm the teach tape. We're doing this. I'm the teach that. And then like we talked about earlier, eventually you're in that trust where you're making the calls. You're making the blue call or the lasso or whatever it is, whatever the call is that time. It was great. I love it. I have a great appreciation for it. And the more I've interviewed NFL athletes that are currently in and out of the league or been, in the league a long time, I always ask, hey, talk to me about the importance of special teams. And they're not a kicker or a punter, which I would say 95% of the people who watch football, they don't understand it at all, because whether you like it or not, in high school, typically special teams, you don't put your best players there. It is different. Special teams in college, we had starters all the time on it. Nobody cares. We need our best guy there. It does not matter how good you are, So important for my journey, absolutely. For my brothers, I told my brother Mac, and anybody who's a Fresno State fan listening to this, Mac Dalena number 0, the dude's a dog on the special teams, absolutely elite. I think he's gonna have a hot take. I think he's gonna have a breakout season at wide receiver personally, but once he gets his shot to pursue the NFL someday, and he takes that chance, his special teams tape, that's going to help him a lot more than people think. So, hey, sometimes you got to do the dirty work. That's the best thing I can say.
Got to do the dirty work. I love
do what
that.
You got to do.
What's funny too, Frank, is I did one of the first projects I had coming in here was to do a scouting report on Fresno State and the special teams units. And it was a lot of fun. I got to watch all the film and break it down, and really spent almost a weekend. Coach Baxter, made me do it and then had me present it to the staff, which was exciting and nerve-wracking. And but the way I've always done is I choose 3 key players on special teams. And one of them was Charles Remlinger from Buchanan. One of them was Kosi Agina from Sanger. And number 3 was Mac Dalena, leading the Mountain West, like I said, in tackles, in special teams. So just standing out like that, like you said. The other cool thing was when I spent some time at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, the tradition of beamer ball and special teams is huge there. we had a Cowboy Scout come and talk to the players. And the point he made about special teams is like, look, we're only going to keep 3 running backs on our roster, if that. We're only going to keep 5 wide receivers. If you're not in the top 1 or 2 running backs, if you're not in the top 3 wide receivers, you have to play special teams. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And if you were star player, it doesn't matter where you were a star at, UC Davis, Fresno State, even Virginia Tech, and you didn't take the time to play special teams, to be a gunner on punt team, to run down and kick off, and we have to teach you those things in camp, you ain't making the team. It's too late at that point. It's too late for you to play.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I've seen it firsthand, like I said.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I love that perspective and that, value that a lot. And hopefully the people do too. They understand it. So, okay, talk to me a little bit now. Not only did you play football and play sports, play soccer, okay, but you were trained to be an Olympic athlete until a blood clot eventually cut that journey short. Tell me briefly about what that was all about and how you went about it and how you got into it.
Yeah, I took a class at Fresno State called the History of the Olympic Games. It was during football season, so I was, in and out of special teams. It was the year we played Bama and Washington, and we went 10-4, so we were having some success. And one of my really good friends, Juju Hughes, was with me in it. It was just an easy general ed. I think they still have it. And basically, the teacher just said, like, hey, I tell my football players every year, try out for Team USA bobsled. That's all it is ex-college football players. Okay. And I was like, kept it in the back of my head, because growing up, me and my brothers, we were really big on speed. We wanted to go to the Olympics as track stars, but the older you get, instead of going to track practice, you'd rather play football, then soccer, then baseball, then basketball, then tennis, then men's volleyball, then whatever. We were just whatever season it was, we wanted to play. Like, we were those guys, and never took track serious. Like, I'd show up to a meet and win, but that only gets you to so long at a certain point. My running form was terrible, but I get there. I'll get there. And then like, it was like 8th grade, and I was like, you know what, man, like, I'm getting like 7th in valleys. Like, all right, I'm not what I once was. But I wasn't putting any effort into it, into like track itself. I had no coaching. I was literally on your mark, get set, go, boom, go. That. So anyways, the Olympics were always on my mind, and I love the United States of America. I think one of the coolest things you could do in sports is represent your country. And I think the United States is the best country in the world. So that's like one of the coolest honors you could have. So, I graduated early from Fresno State, so I still had my 5th year, and I saw that same teacher who was putting that try for bobsled team in my head. And long story short, he got me in touch with the recruiter out there. I kind of got to forego like a little, I wouldn't call it a tryout, but like they basically said, like, hey, you play college football, like, we know you're an athlete. Come out to one of these combines, and was able to go out, really just, I got to show that I was, an athlete, but also I got to meet these guys, and got invited to go to speed school, went to speed school. I finished my last college football game of December of 2019, and I was in speed school freaking January 3rd. Like, it was a bang bang thing. Rented, had to, stayed in the Olympic Village, and then ended up getting an apartment and went to speed school. And like, it's different, man. I mean, I'm used to playing football. I do not like adrenaline, in the sense of, like, I love adrenaline. I hate roller coasters. I would never jump out of an airplane. That's not me, man. I like, but if you were to tell me that, hey, if I compete well enough, I have a chance of going to the Olympics to represent the United States of America, I'd do about anything. So go through speed school. Half of the speed school ends up bailing. I stay for season. I'm living in Park City, Utah. It's awesome. Huge respect for the Olympics, man. I mean, especially something like bobsled skeleton, where you you train 4 years for 50 seconds, and there's so many, I don't want to call it politics, but like there's a lot that goes into the selection of who actually goes to the games. And it's tough, man. Like I was training with people who have been to 5 Olympics. I was training with people who have been trying to go to the Olympics, like legit, it's their life for the last like 14 years, and they just never have gone. And anyways, so I basically get put into like a developmental, I'm racing against, like I'll go to practice and I'll call my mom after practice, instead of being like, what's a scouting report for San Jose State, or how does Boise look this week? I'm being like, yeah, I lost to a dude from Ghana and Ireland and Israel, but I beat a dude from Finland and Japan's here this week. And yeah, 2 dudes from USA were studs, but one didn't race, blah, blah, blah. Like the scouting report, all of a sudden it's like, dude, you're talking about which countries you raced against. Like total different than what I was used to. But you're also, again, I'm back to bottom of the totem pole, which I didn't like because I knew I was fast. I was faster than these people, but they've been doing it 8 years. And you need the experience. So, one season goes, COVID comes, I had some stuff set up. It was cool. Start climbing the totem pole, getting some respected times. The people, the Park City track was my home track. So I got to really get some great connections with the coaches for the Team USA program. And, they took me under their wing. Katie Ulander was awesome to me. She's a 5-time Olympian. Andrew Blazer took me in, and he gave me some tough love. And you just start, you learn the sport, man. It's different. People from Fresno would come. They're on a ski trip. They'd hit me up, be like, "Hey, can we come watch you race tonight?" I'd be like, "Yeah, let's go." I'm sixth up. I'm fifth on the totem pole. It was awesome. I developed a nickname called the Ice Cowboy. It was fun. But yeah, so the games came around and I was racing, and my parents were actually there. I was racing in the North America Cup. And it sucked. Didn't think much of it. The doctor I was working with, we threw a compression sleeve on, threw the icy hot on. We did all the Mr. Miyagi, get right quick type shit, slap some tape on it, go, let's race, baby. I needed to race. And, raced on it one day. Next day I raced on it, went out to dinner again. Dude, I couldn't walk. Get out of bed the next morning, fell, freaked out. At this point, it's like the March of COVID, like the first COVID March. So the shit's locked down.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Go to a hospital and they're like, "What's wrong?" I said, "My calf really hurts." And I was checked in for a flight to go to Switzerland the next day to race. And they're like, "All right, well, we'll do some scans, blah, blah, blah." Ultrasound shows I have this balloon of a blood clot right at like some really, I don't know the medical term, but they were like, "This is really bad. We need to monitor this. We need to put a stent in." And they're like, "You're not going on an airplane lately." And I'm like, "I'm going to St. Moritz in like 10 hours. They're like, "No, you're not." So, I think I still have that American Airlines credit to redeem. But it was an awesome run. And it was, and you know what? When I got hurt, it was kind of the end of the season. They only took one to the Olympics, and I kind of knew I wasn't going to make those games. I was more looking forward to the Italy games in 2024 or 2020. Yeah, 2024. And they were, the people in my corner were like, "Hey, dude, you're not going to go to this games." And I was just like, "Dude, like, okay, but I'm going to still shoot my shot." I got to the point where, I'm racing down a track at an Olympic facility that I'm training at every day against other Olympians racing countries. And at the end, it says Frank Dalena or F Dalena, and then a time, and it says USA underneath of it. And I was just like, dude, it was a good run.
Kind of surreal, huh? That's surreal.
It was awesome, man. It was awesome. And I'm fortunate. And, that whole blood clot thing, I was just like, dude, I have so much I want to do with my life. And I was looking around the room, and there's people they're not married, they're living out of their cars, because the whole sport's expensive as shit. You need sponsors. They don't pay you to go to the Olympics. They don't pay you to train 4 years, unless you're like a Michael Phelps type dude. Like I said, Katie Ulander, dude, she's been to 5 Olympics, and she's not like wearing Rolexes, driving Mercedes. Like, no disrespect to her at all, but like she's very proven, and it's like, dude, she I don't want to live that life. No disrespect to her at all, but like,
well, she's doing it.
She's
doing it because she's passionate, huh? Like, she's not doing it because she's
passionate. She wants to win. All these people, they are obsessed with winning, and I love that, and I loved it, and I still take that to this day. The amount of respect I have for Olympians went up 100%. I mean, millions %. And I feel like it's a fun 2 weeks every 4 years for guys like us who don't see what goes behind it. But there's some really good people that almost make the Olympics, and they don't. And it's like, dude, their life is it's taken away from them. It's this sad stat, but like, Olympians are the highest suicidal people out of all athletics.
Wow.
By far. They're obsessed with it, man. And you know what? You have to be if you want to win the gold, but like, or even go.
Yeah.
But
Frank, talk a little bit. You hit on it a little bit earlier too about how they have to prepare for this moment. It's a lot like kicking. For the way I can compare it is like you train all year for maybe 10 attempts or 15 attempts on a season, and it's easy for that pressure and that expectations to just explode inside your head. What is that like when you're training, and how do you not let that get to your head when you're training for these events all year?
So I think one thing that I kind of it brings me back to our track we were talking about earlier. I hadn't competed in an individual sport for a long time. So I hadn't, track, it's if you're running the 400, it's your ass. You either win or you lose. And I'm not saying, football, you could blame it on another guy, but kind of. Obviously not a kicker, but you could also. Was the snap good? Was the hold good? Like, there's kind of that gray area. It's your ass. So when I'd crash, it's my ass. Was your equipment not good? Blah, blah, blah. So there's definitely a pressure there. And it's also the elements, one thing people don't really know about bobsled/skeleton is every course in the world is different. It's kind of like IndyCar racing. So the home country gets a huge advantage just because you get more practice on the course, essentially, right? And certain countries are kind of assholes where, like, they'll charge you, for me, I eventually got my fees, waived, but like you'll have to pay, let's say I have to pay $20 to race to get ice time that night. They have to pay, $2,000 for the night. It's not that, but it's a shit ton.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And it's like, it's way out of sorts because they're international. So, there's little quirks and politics to it that's tough, but just understanding. I was in one race one time, like the guy who got first, I don't remember the exact time. Let's say he ran a 50 seconds. The guy who got 10th had 51 seconds. So there was 9 guys in between. I mean, that happens regularly. Like, 10th of a second is the difference between, a gold medal and 6th place in the Olympics. It's crazy. But, and then bringing it back to you trained 4 years, if you guys stay focused. For me, that was tough too. I mean, there's nights where it's snowy outside. It's going to be a slow track. You're not breaking any PRs. And for me, I'm just going to go down and, work on something. I'm just going down to get my reps in, versus a guy who's like a 4-time Olympian being like, I'm going to work on my turn 3 exit. And I'm just like, shit, man, I wasn't there yet. It takes time. It really does. But my respect for them has definitely grown. And I had to drive. Like, I had to be a pilot. Versus other guys, you could just run and jump in and just hold on. I was the driver. I was the pilot. My chances of going to the games were up significantly higher if I was a pilot. So I took that approach. The way these guys prepare for the reflexes, you're going 80 miles an hour head first. The G forces is insane. So these guys, they'd prepare. They do reaction drills before. I used to take a bath before every time I'd go to the track, and just turn the lights off and close my eyes and just mentally make it to where I didn't have to have my eyes open. I had the whole track memorized. Wow. And that's me. Like dudes are insane. The amount of practice they have and the equipment, there's so much you don't know about it. It's so awesome to talk about. But the way that they mentally stay sane when it's preparing time, it was admirable. And you know what too, like, not to call people up, like there's people who trained 12 years and didn't go to these last Olympics, and dude, they like fell off the deep end. They're like in actual depression right now. It's crazy. So anyways, I basically said, shit, it was an awesome run. I didn't expect to play college football in my life. Did that. It was awesome. Got 3 rings to show for it. Some great friends, some great experiences, some great networking, all this shit. Threw my hat in the ring to maybe see if I could be a bobsledder, and ended up training with Team USA for 2 years. Got some accolades out of it. More than I ever thought, man. So at that point, when I got the blood clot, some stuff was happening in the family business. I'm the oldest son. It was time to come home, and a couple weeks into that, that's when Bring the Juice was born.
Yeah, that's cool. That kind of leads us into our next section there. Can you tell us about the journey of building your brand, growing your podcast, and then maybe some marketing strategies that you found the most effective? How did you grow it so successfully?
So, I was in an onion field at midnight, dark outside, only dude speaking English. And, dude, I went on a few other people's podcasts like a few weeks earlier. And I was just really at this point where, I built my brain to shut off and turn on certain aspects of my life as far as mindset goes. Like being as undersized as I am physically to be a college football player, and saying like, hey, listen, there's a good chance this dude's going to come and you're going to get pieced up right now. Well, anybody who's played football knows, like, you can't go into a collision half speed. That's how you get hurt. You have to just find the angle, and sometimes you just got to take it. And understanding that was going to happen and not to be scared, it helped me in football. And then I turned that into, you're going to go head first, miles an hour down an ice track made of concrete. How to take the fear out of it. Eventually, I wrote all these ideas down, just on what's next. Really I had a buddy who was like, "Oh, it's a great source of revenue," and I was like, "Okay, whatever. I'll look into it." And didn't know I was going to start a podcast about. Wanted it to be something that, like, I didn't want to have somebody on my show that I couldn't relate to because they're too advanced or they know more than me, or I don't want them to be like, "Oh, you didn't know this," or something like that. Like, I'm all for learning, but like, I need to have had experience in the niche and sector that I was a part of. You can't talk about kicking if you weren't, it helps that you were a kicker and the specialist. The fact that you're talking about kicking, you can relate to it. I realized, like, I could relate to the mindset to chase greatness. I can relate to that. So I just thought, you know what? I have all these buddies who are some of my best friends, that just finished playing college football and now they own businesses, or they're successful realtors, or they're in the NFL, or, the guy down the street who's now in MLB, or I'm linked up with a Quincy Pondexter who just finished his 9-year career in the NBA. And I wrote them all down and realized, shit, man, I got about 40 people I could text right now that people would want to listen to their perspective on life and how athletics has formed them into the person they are today. And maybe, just maybe, if I could take that same things they talk about and make it to where it's relevant to just a normal person working a 9 to 5, maybe they're just a father, a mother, a brother, an uncle, whatever you're doing in life, like you could take a nugget of this information, this wisdom, whatever you want to call it, and maybe it brings positive vibes to your life that'll help you succeed some way, shape, or form. And I just thought, you know what? Shit, man, I'm gonna shoot my shot here. And I loved the Barstool Sports feel at the time of we're drinking beers. This is not me being Scott Van Pelt trying to have a sit down, serious ass interview. I want to have a conversation, not an interview, man. And I made it to where I only, and my thing was, I believed that you have better conversation, not at all. Me and you are having a great conversation, but I believed for my format that you have better conversations in person with people. If I want someone to open up about how their father passed away in 8th grade and they grinded through that, thinking they had to be the man of the house, and they were forced to go to the NFL because they had no other choice to buy their mom, success in life, they're more likely to open up about that after we just had a whiskey or we shared some chips and salsa, etc., versus hopping on the Zoom and being like, so bro, talk to me about this. Like they might hit the surface, but it just doesn't hit the same. So I kind of made these guidelines, had success early, knew I needed to come up with a brand, a logo of some sort. And being a country boy who was also the only white boy wide receiver on the football team, I realized all cultures wore Bass Pro Shop hats. And I was like, okay, I love Bass Pro. These guys all like Bass Pro. Girls like Bass Pro hats, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to get it to where I could get us, close to it without getting in legal trouble as possible. I got it all. We're square there. I got it trademarked. But that was a part of it too. And then just kind of realizing like, hey, who's going to listen to this shit? And I was shocked off that because the guy who played JV football could still relate to this guy who plays for the 49ers. Like it really does all go hand in hand. And I think it's such a cool platform for people to just kind of like see that, hey, this superhero who plays for the Atlanta Falcons, he's just a normal dude who, yeah, he plays video games sometimes and he likes to go get drinks at Applebee's because it's cheaper sometimes. And he, thinks that his car wash was too expensive because it was $34. Like they're normal dudes. And to be able to have that platform where they could, express their personality side of things also, it really just became a perfect combination. Momentum grew and I've ran with it. And the social medias have grown. I'm blessed where Fox Sports Radio, from the bottom of Bakersfield to the top of Stockton, they came into the equation. The guy who I had dealt with, I got this random phone call, basically, hey, you don't know me, but I run this part of Fox Sports Radio. And I said, oh, sweet. He goes, yeah, my daughter asked me for $20 to buy one of your Bring the Juice hats, so I had to check this out. And sure enough, it's worked out, and they gave me an opportunity, and their numbers have been good, and my numbers have been good. And it started off with such a Valley-based group of athletes because there's so much talent that comes through the Valley, and luckily, I wanted it to be a thing where athletes, I don't put them in a bad position. I don't want clickbait. I don't want to talk about, their mess ups and maybe this will get more clicks because you did some stupid shit at one point. We're all human beings. I'm not going to put you on the spot like that. Instead, you could talk about how you learned from it if you're open about it. But I'm not going to hold you to that, etc. So athletes, they come on, they see their buddies, or athlete come on and their buddies see them on and they're like, shit, man, that's an awesome conversation. That's a cool platform. I like what they're doing. Elite athletes chasing greatness. I could get behind that. And it's blossomed. And, now like we talked about earlier, our sponsorships have grown. And shit, I went to Vegas this year. I went on to Dallas twice, San Diego. We're going to go to Utah, went to Nebraska. it's I didn't think we'd get to this point this fast. And I'm trying to keep it going and steer the ship the right direction and make it to where we don't lose track of who we are, which is really, I always go full circle. And at the end of the day, like I said earlier, if you could listen to this or follow Bring the Juice and it somehow is a positive impact in your life, shit, I'm going to keep doing it. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. And like, I'm not afraid to talk about, I'm not trying to convert people into certain religions or anything, but I've said it many times on the podcast. I don't know one football player that wouldn't want God on their side when you're going full speed down on a kickoff into a wedge. Yeah, I do. I don't know a kicker who isn't like, hey man, God, I'd really appreciate it if we just, let's make this one go down the middle here.
Need a little help on that side, huh? No,
a little help. Like,
I think I agree with that too, Frank. What you're saying is the most surprising thing about podcasting is all the people that want to support and want to listen, because you're like, and the coolest thing about the stuff that we do or the way we do it is that we have some guests on that are, they have played at a very high level or you have connections with them and they're willing to come sit down. I do love that aspect that you do because it's so, the drinks and you got Coach Tedford on there, you got Jay Kaner on there, and they're just laid back, they're chilling. You can see that connection live and in person. I prefer, doing the way I've done it, and everyone has their own way of doing it. I can reach a little bit more people across the nation. That's good too. But I do think there's a lot to be said to build your fan base in your area. And, I've seen how far it spread just in a year is really exciting. Talk a little bit about the Fox Sports deal. You don't have to get too far into it, but what is that? Are they showing, your podcast on there? You come on to a show? Like what is that for the Bring the Juice podcast?
Yeah. So, the way it kind of approached, the way it ended up being, so they came to me, they loved the podcast. They just said like, hey, like we want to get you a good slot. You really have value here. That their team. I walked into the building, and they were waiting for me in a conference room, and we talked. It was awesome. It was like it wasn't an interview. They already knew everything that they knew about me. I was like, they did their homework. So in our region, the iHeartRadio and Fox Sports Radio are kind of hand in hand, and basically the way it went down is they said, hey, you don't have to change your podcast because we love your product. Keep doing your thing. We will air them the date because they drop every Thursday. We'll air it, me, like I push it out on Apple, Spotify, all that stuff. They said, we'll just air it basically the same day, but on Fox Sports Radio. And you'll be on the Fox Sports Radio app and you'll be on iHeartRadio app. Now, as like a premium podcast, not a guy who just submits necessarily. And I was like, okay, cool. Along with that, they wanted me to be a part because of, me being a former player, kind of becoming this a little bit of a media personality. And my family's very Bulldog born, Bulldog bred. They asked me to do the pregame and postgame show with like CK, Pat Hill, Paul Leffler, Cam Morrell, all those guys. So this last year, and like Kenny Wiggins would dive in with us, Marcus McMarion every once in a while, and Tonga Paw. But I kind of grabbed the bull by the horns because I was trying to promote Bring the Juice. I never said that, hey, make sure you listen to Bring the Juice. But people hearing Frank Dalena on the radio, maybe they like it, maybe they don't listen to more Frank Dalena. And I luckily I'm still so in with the team to where like I treat it like a podcast. I'm not like, Jordan Mims' ankle hurts. And I'm like, dude, Jordan Mims does not like this defense. 2018, he was pissed. He only rushed for 77 yards, and Ronnie rushed for 100. He's about to go off. Like, they don't know that, but I do type thing. And so I just kind of bring this Pat McAfee type.
I was going to say, it's almost McAfee like the way you can bring a
is.
natural approach. That's a good guy to
Totally.
do.
And I run with that. Like, don't try to be something you're not. Let Paul Leffler be the formal guy and this whole thing. Like, let me just do my thing. And I'm not going to, on live radio, like I made sure like I'm not going to, drop an F-bomb or anything like that. I've been good about that. But like, I'm the wild card and I've always kind of been that guy. And I try to make it to where I do it in a respectful mannerism, not like I don't want to be a douche, and I make sure I take pride in not being a douchebag. But like, dude, like, I mean, sometimes you got to just roll up with, your cowboy boots on and the cutoff, sun's out, guns out, Coors Light in hand, maybe your red cowboy hat, and just like, hey man, the dogs are out to play today. Like, it's home opener for Fresno State football, early September. What else do you have to do right now?
Bring
What
it.
else do you have to do besides go and tailgate and then go scream your ass off for 2 hours and then go out to a bar or go home and enjoy your evening? Like, go support the dogs. It's 6 Saturdays a year. And it's so simple and so clear to me. And like, it does bring such an awesome dynamic to the Valley itself. It brings excitement to the Valley. You take Fresno State football out of the Valley, there's a little bit of sadness, I feel like.
Missing piece for sure. And you know what?
Oh.
That energy is great. And as a coach, I love hearing that. I'm sure, Coach Tepper's told you that too. And it reminds me of like the time I spent at Virginia Tech, where it's like everyone shuts down, and that's what a Power 5 program is. Like, they go out and they support. And that's why, especially here, there's been rumblings about Power 5 conferences in the Big 12. I mean, that type of mentality is going to get the dogs to the next level. So I love hearing that.
It has to. Yeah.
It has to. So, all right, man, I appreciate you coming on here, and this is always good to chop it up with a fellow Valley guy. We got our rapid fire section, okay, brought to you by the Kicker's Bible. You ready for this rapid fire?
Let's hit it. I'm excited.
So I know you're a man of many words, but in this section, all right, it's going to be more few words, phrases. You can get a little bit into it, but I got a couple, probably 8 questions here for you. So you ready?
Rip them. Let's go.
All right, here we go. What does Bring the Juice mean to you, and what does it represent?
Bring the Juice is when you're in bed and you don't want to get out of bed, but you have to provide for your family or go accomplish a goal. It's the kick in the ass that gets you out of bed, makes your piss hot, and you go chase greatness. It's the first couple beats of Thunderstruck. It's the first couple of DMX. X gonna give it to you. That is Juice. That is Bring the Juice, and it is contagious. It burns like wildfire. It is relevant towards sports, yes, but if you want to live your life bringing the juice, I promise you'll be successful.
I love it. It's more than a few words, but I love it still. You interview pro athletes from the Central Valley, okay? What qualities, all right, what unique qualities do you think these guys possess, and how is that different from other places?
So, honestly, because now that I've been interviewing, yes, I am Central Valley heavy, but like, I really gone a while without interviewing Central Valley guys, which is awesome too. The Valley dudes love the Valley. Like, I feel like everyone wants to be from LA or the Bay, but once you make it and you're from the Valley, it's like, bro, I'm 5'9", baby. I'm a Valley kid. And, being a Fresno State guy, I think the Valley V needs to be emphasized 10,000% more than it already is. And it's nothing cooler than talking to an NFL guy who's been in the league and asking the question of like, do people know about the Valley V around the league? Because people know Fresno State around the NFL. We've checked that box. And for them to be like, yeah, they know what the Valley V is. Like, they know. I have to explain it to them, but they're like, what's that green V? It's awesome. So I think the biggest difference is one, they can handle adversity and they're not used to getting things hand fed their way. But I think Valley dudes love being from the Valley and they embrace that grit.
I 100% agree with that. And it's funny, when I was at UC Davis, we talked a little bit, director of player personnel, so doing all the recruiting. It was futile, right? If you're trying to get a guy from the Valley and Fresno State had offered, now we did a great job, and there's some fantastic talent, guys that would have gone to Mountain West or even Pac-12 offers that ended up at UC Davis. It's a great program. But if a guy got offered by Fresno State and he was from the Valley, he's going to be a dog. That's just how it is. And I like to say in recruiting here, it's like, hey, from Sacramento down to Bakersfield, we're the NFL team, right? These kids grow up and they aspire. I know at least I did, and I'm sure you did too, on the side of that ramp, right, yelling at the Utah State or whatever bum team and the referees coming up. We were harassing those referees. That's what you dream of, walking down that ramp.
Absolutely.
And I'm so excited to get to do that this fall, like you've done and your family and your brothers have done in the past. Okay, from the first episode with George Helmuth, who's a Clovis North grad, to Madre Harper and Michael Walker, what has changed?
Oh man. Professionalism, I'd say. I mean, I've gotten better. I've learned let the guest talk because people like talking about themselves. I steer the conversation. If they're not talking, I'm going to talk more. If they are talking, let them run. I definitely would say too, just from the professional standpoint of like the videography, the way everything looks. I mean, episode 1, my mom came downstairs with my iPhone at 9, and she legit had a glass of red wine in one hand, and it was shaking like crazy, and she forgot to press play, and all I had was a picture of me and George, and I was like, oh, I mean, all right. We did like a fake video just to get some sort of video, versus now I got a full-on video crew, 2 dudes, 3 cameras, like crazy lighting. They make the reels, or I mean, you can't go higher from a professional standpoint. It's an investment, I mean, we've taken into account. So I'd say it's the professional side of things, and it's helping, but I feel like I've gotten better too. So,
No doubt, man. I think that is cool. And that's kind of the step that we're looking to take next year, having an editor and stuff. But like you said, everything, the lighting, the mics, all that goes a long way. How do you balance your role as a host, an interviewer, your own personal brand, your own other job, right? Working on the farm and stuff. And what advice would you give to other podcasters looking to build their own brand?
I would say you need to have a plan and stick to it, and understand the hardest thing about this podcast game is the consistency side. And there's algorithms out there. Like, if you're going to drop once every 2 weeks, you better drop every 2 weeks. If you're going to drop once a week, you better drop the same day once a week, even if it's a 5-minute episode, because as soon as you stop that algorithm, you're going to fall out of people's playlists. You're going to do all this crap. You got to be consistent, but have a game plan. Why? Like, I think there's too many dudes these days who they buy some mics and they sit on their couch and they just want to talk about shooting the shit. And that's awesome. I love that. I'd love to have another podcast where I just do that. But I would say if you were starting out, or if you're serious about the pod game, what are you going to do that separates yourself from everybody else? And then you could take that approach to anything in life. But I would see what you could do. And I make sure, say, hey, Frank, you're a sports podcast. Yep. And I make sure I ask these people how they're chasing greatness. I make sure we cross that bridge every single episode. So I'd say that's your biggest advice. Have a plan, attack it, and be consistent, and separate yourself.
I agree. I think there's too many guys out here just talking about sports, and down in someone's basement talking sports, which is okay. But it's
Fine.
not different. It's not different. You know what I mean? It's not like the Bring the Juice podcast. Okay. Two more. What strategies have you used to create buy-in from the community, and how have you engaged with your listeners to create a stronger following? Because you do have a big following here.
I understand that when you take the time to shake someone's hand, to take a picture, to respond to a DM, to respond to a text, to help someone out, it goes a long way. And I was taught at a young age, be nice to everybody. You never know who they're gonna end up being. Not saying kiss everyone's ass hoping they return a favor someday, but like, it's one of those things where it's like, dude, I'm not freaking Joe Rogan where I can't walk into a room and it's too much. Like, hopefully we get to that point. And I'll tell you, in the Fresno category, I'll never lose base of myself. I don't care what it is or how big this gets. I will never become too big to go to a Doghouse Grill, to a Dervos Deli, to a Fresno State football game. Like, I will never have to go sit in a box because I don't want to take a million pictures. I'd rather be with the boys in the red seats watching the dogs than avoiding that. And like, I think taking the time to build relationships with people, no matter how big or small. You got 5 followers and you want to say, "Hey, bro, I appreciate the podcast. I love it." I'm gonna respond and be like, "Hey, thank you for the support, man. Iron sharpens iron, whatever it might be." So between just being personable with my supporters, I've tried to do a really good job of keeping my merchandise reasonably priced. I just remember being a high school kid. You ask your mom for $45, she's probably not going to give it to you. You ask your mom for maybe 20, maybe if it's like, okay, sly. Or even if you're a kid who's like, maybe you make your own money and you're choosing what to spend it on. I was in that boat too. I'll spend $20 on a hat if I really like it.
Just like that Fox Sports guy, right? And his daughter.
Hey man, it worked out. That's what I'm saying. So, and I try to do giveaways. I try to keep it fresh. Obviously, having such a Fresno State base, I'm trying this season. I have some Bring the Juice merch that's kind of molded towards Fresno State colors and stuff like that. So I'm excited. I've thrown some events trying to build the community. Like, we threw that golf tournament. It was we brought in all this money. I didn't take a cent from it. I wanted to write as big of a check possible back to Fresno State. And people might say, why would you not, pay yourself or something? Like, dude, honestly, my goal of the event was to make it awesome, to raise money, but to build awareness of Bring the Juice. And I'm going to keep doing stuff like that. And, it takes time. It takes time.
No, I agree. I think that's really awesome. That's, I love what you're doing for the community and for Fresno State. I think that's awesome. And I got to get my hat, man. I got to buy my hat. I'm sorry, I'm slacking. I'm just getting back to the Valley, but I will definitely get on that. Final question here. What do you see the future of the Bring the Juice podcast as, and how do you hope to continue to inspire and motivate your audience?
I have such big goals, and like in the podcast game, goals are, for me, at one point they were numbers. It was like, hey, I want 10,000 followers on Instagram. I want 20,000. I want 100,000. And I have those type of goals. But the amount of, connections I've made, I mean, if I didn't have Bring the Juice, I would not have met, 60 NFL players by now. I mean, maybe because Michael Walker and Keyshawn are some of my best friends, but like, it's becoming, I got to go hang out and drink beers with Danny Woodhead, like, because of Bring the Juice. I wasn't going to meet Danny Woodhead if I didn't have Bring the Juice. It's given me so many connections and taken me to so many cool places. So obviously I'm chasing the numbers because, more clicks, more engagement, it leads to better sponsorship opportunities and things like that. But for me personally, I have some lists. I have some guests that I want on the pod. So I'm chasing the guests at this point. I have some that I think I'm going to get. But once you get, it's like anything, you reach one goal, you want to go bigger than bigger than bigger than bigger. I mean, even if I get, I'm really, I'm aiming to get Josh Allen on pretty soon here, and it's going to happen. But once you get Josh on, it's like, dude, I need Stephon. Right. I want the whole Bills offense. Like, Julian Edelman's one of my guys. I'd love to interview Julian Edelman someday. Like, I'd love to interview Wes Welker someday. Just, this is me being a white boy wide receiver. But like, that, obviously, why would you not want to talk to Michael Jordan? Like, there's certain guys that are very hard to get in a room with, but there's some guys where it's like, okay, if I go to Julian Edelman and say, hey, I had Danny Amendola, Danny Woodhead, Logan Mankins, Gronk, whoever on, it's your turn, buddy. He's going to know about Bring the Juice at this point. And maybe he doesn't know that I want him on, but he's going to have seen my content at some point to where it's like I'm planting seeds constantly to get these dudes on. It's going to happen. So, I got my list of I got my grocery list of guys I want on. So I'm going to keep chasing that and like to be able to talk like a Dave Portnoy someday, man. Like that's on my list. I say what you want about Barstool. That dude builds something out of nothing. And so it's inspiring. And Going to try to keep going. And I'd say the last thing is, start my own network where podcasts like yourself could be underneath it. We support each other. You could talk whatever you want. Maybe you're strictly talking to specialists. I think that's an awesome thing. Whatever you want it to be, as broad as you want it to be, but it's your sector. You put in the work. You do what it needs to do. Maybe I can get some sponsorship money your way to where you could have more resources to keep growing success. So whatever I could do. And, I'm not going to lose. I'm too valley based. I'm not going to lose sight of my track of valleys. And even, after my youngest brother plays here, his first season at Fresno State, like me and my brothers take this shit to the heart. Like we're getting the Valley V branded on us. Like we're really about that life. That sounds crazy, but we've talked about it since we were like 10 years old, man.
That's awesome.
And yeah, man, I know I had some long-winded answers, but I'm passionate about what I do, and it's exciting to be on the other side of the microphone sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy for you. I'm proud that you're doing this because, like I said, it brings a spotlight to the Valley. And yeah, I'll always support you too, man. I think that's awesome. You're definitely going to get those guests. I will say one thing, and again, it's a little bit different, but having Adam Vinatieri on here and David Akers, two of my idols. I mean, growing up as a specialist, and to have those guys on and talk to them for an hour and a half.
Right.
Are you kidding me? Like just the pride that you feel, and you've already had some amazing guests and events too, right? Like all the events that you're putting on, I think are sweet. So
yeah, trying to give people some fun, and they can bring the juice along the way, man.
I love that. Well, thank you again, Frank, for coming on, for talking about bringing the juice, the Valley, your reach. What else you got going on? Is there anything you want to plug coming up? I know we got a pretty big spring game coming up here.
Spring game, April 15th. If you're tailgating, come to the Bring Your Juice tailgate. We'll have beer. You should bring more. Jervo's Deli is launching a new sandwich, and they're going to be giving out samples at the tailgate. It's one of the best sandwiches I've ever had in my life.
There we go.
And then July 15th. This has not been released yet, but just know Bring the Juice is hosting Juice Boxing. It is a boxing event. It's going to be as if Floyd Mayweather's fighting, man. It's going to be absolutely insane. As of right now, it's scheduled to be at Table Mountain Casino, which is going to be hype. Got to get one more signature to make that to where I could blast it. But regardless, we have backup venues. Keep July 15th open for Juice Boxing.
That's awesome. Juice Boxing.
Yeah.
Heard it here first, man. We'll definitely get a clip out of that stuff. But awesome, man. I'm fired up for you and for your next events. I'm fired up for the dogs. Looking forward to seeing you next Saturday. Yes, is there anything else you want to leave us with before you head out?
No, man. I appreciate you coming. I know we've been talking for a bit now. I appreciate you letting me come on your pod. I think you're definitely growing on the right track. Like you said, you have a Vinatieri on that you automatically got a merit in a lot of people's books, and hopefully someday, if all things go together, we could work together someday. Growing podcasts, growing networks, putting the Valley on the map, spreading some positivity in the world. And appreciate you. Go Dogs, bring the juice.
Go Dogs, bring the juice. I love it. Thanks a lot. That's been Frank Dalena with the Iceman Podcast. A word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by The Kicker's Bible. The Kicker's Bible. Ever wondered about how many kicks you should do during practice after pulling your quad multiple times? Repeatedly snapping the ball over your punter's head? Keep getting dumped by all your girlfriends for missing kicks? Well, we can't help with all those things. But for some of those, there's The Kicker's Bible. Proven training methods and secrets used by NFL specialists, written by yours truly, Brett Arkelian, with over 20 NFL specialist accounts, including personal excerpts from record-setting and Hall of Fame specialists David Akers and Shane Graham. If you are interested in any of these fantastic tips and excerpts discussed in this episode, visit icemancaking.com or go to my Twitter bio, Iceman_kicking.